Maryland basketball is dancing.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net. So make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet if it wins. Maryland basketball is dancing, and it's some of the more exciting times for Maryland basketball. The number one goal going into the season, I think, every year for a lot of college basketball teams, and I think for a Maryland team this year, is to play in March. Is to play in March Madness. It's to make some type of run in March. For some of the smaller schools, it's just to make the tournament. For a team like Maryland, that was pretty bad last year, I think our goal this year was just to get back to the tournament. We knew we had the talent to do so. We knew we could do it. And anything else that comes with that is kind of beneficial. Obviously, you want to be a pretty high seed. Obviously, you want to do some of those things. But the fact that Maryland basketball is in the tournament, we just have to take a second and appreciate that. Because remember what happened last year where our team was pretty bad. There's been plenty of teams, plenty of Maryland teams that haven't made the tournament. Obviously, we have a pretty good tradition of winning as a team. And when Maryland basketball is good, it's better for college basketball. A lot of people will tell you that. And I agree with that statement. I do think when Maryland's good, it's better for college basketball. But it is really awesome for us to be in a tournament. It's awesome for me, obviously, because I have more to talk about. Whereas last year, I'm like, Maryland basketball could be on the downfall, could lose Julian Reese, could lose this guy, could lose that guy, is kind of what I was saying last year. And it's kind of hard to watch and see other people be able to talk about it. But we have something to really talk about now. We get to talk about the tournament. Can Terps make a run? All these different things. And I think that is really fun that Maryland ended up in the tournament. It's not like the selection Sunday was a sweat at all. We knew we were going to be in. We knew we were going to be a pretty decent seed. JBR bracketology, if you guys ended up watching that video, it's like a 15-minute video, actually gave us really good information when talking about the Terps, saying that Maryland was probably going to come in at about a 4 seed. He said the Big Ten tournament isn't going to change much if Maryland wins it. If Maryland is whatever, Maryland's probably going to be about a 4 seed. And I think that's true because look at a team like Michigan. They won the Big Ten tournament, and a lot of people would have thought that Michigan was probably a higher seed than a 5, but they ended up being a 5 seed. So JBR bracketology was right. And so some of me actually is not glad, but I see the benefit of us not having to play that extra game, even though it was a Big Ten championship, and obviously you want to play in that game. I'm not arguing that we wouldn't want to be in that game, but I do think it will be a little bit beneficial for the Terps, the fact that we didn't have to play an extra game, whereas the Michigan team had to play an extra game and won the Big Ten tournament, which is obviously one of your goals heading into the year, so obviously they would take that any day, but in terms of implications for March, they're going to be a little bit more tired, have a little bit more game on them, whereas the Terps, they won't have had played a game, which I think means something for Maryland basketball. So I do think that that's important, especially with some of the depth issues that we have. And I'll talk about the Michigan loss a little bit later, but I do think Maryland playing the least amount of games possible is really good. But I think if you told me going into the year Maryland basketball was going to be a 4 seed, I would have taken it. If you would have told me halfway through the season that Maryland was going to be a 4 seed, I honestly would have taken it. It's a really good seed for the Terps, and you put yourself at a really good spot, I think. And I think the bracket that we drew, knock on wood, is actually a really good bracket. And we'll definitely dive into this. That's the exciting part. There's so much to dive into. There's so much to talk about. but I do think we lucked out a little bit with our side of the bracket in terms of Maryland potentially making it to the Sweet 16. I do think we could be in a really good spot overall. There are some good teams at the bottom of our bracket in terms of St. John's, we know is really hot. Kansas is a tough 7 seed, even though they've had a tough year. Arkansas, of course, coached by Coach Calipari now. But I think that some of the higher seeds, like the 3 seed Texas Tech, like I'm not sure we're not better than them. Even Memphis has a 5 in the second round. I think Memphis is actually an underdog in their first game. I think I saw that. Maybe that could be wrong. Definitely have to double check that. UConn and Oklahoma as 8 and 9s. I mean, UConn as an 8's never easy. Florida is a wagon right now, 1. But I do think this is one of the lighter sides, and I think it's a good spot for Maryland. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people actually end up taking the Terps to maybe make it out of this region and into the Final Four. Who knows? We'll have plenty of time to jump into that, and I'll definitely have a bracketology episode kind of where I break down our side of the bracket, kind of predict everything out. I'll do that maybe over the next day or two. Obviously, we got to do that before because the Terps play on Friday, I'm pretty sure. And we, of course, drew the game against Grand Canyon, which is going to be an interesting type of game. Friday, 4:35. So definitely we'll be in tune for that. We'll definitely have a pregame for you guys there. We'll definitely dive into a lot of stuff about Grand Canyon. But all I'm hoping at this point, I don't care what the win looks like. I don't care if Maryland covers the spread. I don't care if this happens or that happens. They just need to win. That's what March basketball is about. It's just about win and continue to dance. But back to the seeding, I think when I talk about Maryland as a 4 seed, it's really good stuff from the Terps. And I think we got to start with credit to Kevin Willard. And I'll talk about some of the rumors, I guess, now since we don't have that as a segment. But credit to Kevin Willard to rebound after a lot of people were like, he should be fired and all these different things, and rebound with a really good year for Maryland basketball and take this program to a really good spot where a lot of people feel really good about where we are and make the tournament as a 4 seed and put together one of the more talented teams, I think, in the country, maybe the best starting lineup in the entire country. Credit to Kevin Willard, because that's not easy to do after coming off a year where Maryland was one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. You had to destroy that. You had to knock all that down, and you had to restart and put everyone in better positions and get us on the right path. And that's just not easy to do at all for the Terps. And I feel really good about Kevin Willard being our coach in the future and him getting us to the spots that we need to be. I think he's going to really elevate this program and continue to give us a level of consistency and hopefully get Maryland basketball back to where it should be, back to having a really consistent every year tournament team. And I think this year's really put us in a spot where transfers are going to look at what Rodney Rice did this year and Celta Miguel did this year and Jacoby Gillespie did this year. And they're going to say, I want to go to Maryland. I think that's a good opportunity for me. And I think that Kevin Willard has done a really good job with that. And then also there's been rumors about Kevin Willard leaving for Villanova, and now I'm hearing extension talks. It does sound like Kevin Willard is going to extend with the Maryland Terrapins. There was a report that he could be one of the top 10 or 15 highest paid coaches after Maryland pays him. So that is going to be interesting too. But something that can help me feel really good about Kevin Willard is a tournament run. And I thought when we were the 8th seed a couple years ago, I didn't think we had too much. I thought we had a good team. I thought we had a tournament team. We were a tournament team. I thought year 1, Kevin Willard, I felt good about the product of getting into the tournament. But the thing was, we knew we couldn't win it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying we win it this year, but we're one of the teams that could. I think when we looked at the DraftKings odds, like we're in the top 10 to 12 teams in terms of odds to win the whole thing. So we're absolutely a team that can win it. And I think that's where a lot of pressure is on this Kevin Willard team. When we were the 8 and we played Bama in the second round after beating West Virginia, we were the 9 or the 8. I'm forgetting exactly what we were. It wasn't a team that we knew could go on a deep run. This Maryland team now is a 4 seed, where the bracket lined up, all those different things. We know this is a team that can go on a deep run. that can cause a lot of problems for a lot of different teams. And so I think that's what excites me. I think that's what puts a little bit of pressure on us, but it's just because we have the personnel to be able to do it. And I do think we have the starting five. The depth is going to be something that matters. March, you're going to need unexpected guys to step up. That's what happens every year in March Madness. So we'll see exactly what happens for Maryland, but I'm definitely excited to see what the Terps do, how they play. I'm excited to see how their bracket shapes out. The only thing, I'm just praying for no upsets. You know they're going to happen. You know teams are going to get upset, but you're just hoping that Maryland's not one of those teams to get upset. I want to dive into the loss to Michigan a little bit because I never got a chance to talk about it because it happened over the weekend. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. What went wrong? What do we need to learn? What do we need to clean up going into March? I'll talk about that next. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, so you can fuel your bodies without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether that's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Convenience meets nutrition. I love how Factor keeps you on track with healthy, delicious meals without the time of consuming preps. The Korean beef bowl and the creamy Parmesan chicken are some of my favorites. They taste homemade but take no effort. Factor also offers smoothies, breakfast, and snacks, so you always have something nutritious ready to go. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast and use code Factor Podcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Factor Podcast at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Get the supplies you need from the sites made for the skilled trades Supply House. Whether it's your plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with the complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage of, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. So Maryland basketball lost to Michigan on another buzzer beater. I do have a couple takeaways from this game that I want to get into. First of all, it definitely stunk. It definitely hurt to see Maryland basketball lose their Big Ten tournament game like that. I didn't feel any worse or better about Maryland basketball. I think Michigan, they're good. I think they're better than I thought. I think I underestimated them. Those two bigs for Michigan, they're just tough. And Maryland had trouble stopping those two guys. And the Golden Kid and Danny Wolf, both guys are really top-end guys that are really tough to beat down low. Wolf ended up having 21. He's an NBA guy. The way he's moving at that size, it's pretty crazy. He also had 5 offensive rebounds. Golden had 25 with 6 offensive rebounds. I don't think their guard play is amazing. Like, none of those guys kill you at the guard spot. Like Trey Donaldson hit the buzzer. He had 12. Burnett had 10, but Reuben Jones, their other star, only had 2. Like, their guards aren't going to kill you, but their big man and their offensive rebounding really kind of can. So I did think that Michigan had a good game against the Terps, but I think Maryland battled the entire game and had to go on a run to stay in it. I thought that Roddy Rice, after having a really hot shooting day, really slowed down from the three-point line. And if he got going a little bit more, I think we win that game. He was 1 of 6 from the three-point line, only 8 points, 3 of 9 from the field. So he didn't have his best game. Gillespie was 4 of 11 from the field, 2 of 6 from the three-point line. He played pretty well. I thought Celton Miguel showed up. with 2 of 4 from the three-point line and 16 points overall. So those guys, I thought the guards were solid. I thought we could have been a bit better. The guy that really impressed me against Michigan was Derek Queen, man. Derek Queen had 31 points, 2 blocks. He had only 3 rebounds, which is a little bit surprising. You would have probably seen more there, but Derek Queen went 9 of 9 from the free throw line. He went 2 of 4 from the three-point line, so he was hitting threes, which if he's hitting threes, you know he's probably doing something pretty good if he's taking those. And then he also was 10 of 19 from the field too. So really good game from Derek Queen, really efficient game from Derek Queen. And going into the tournament, we're going to tie everything back in the tournament. He has to be great for us. He's our best guy. He's our most talented guy. He's our NBA guy. He's the guy where I say there's always a guy in March that ends up tearing everyone's bracket up, goes on a run that you just don't expect, goes crazy in a couple games. And to me, Queen's a guy that has to do that for the Terps. He might have to have a game where he has 30 points or 28 and 10 boards. And he's that type of talent. And if we need it, he's going to have to deliver it. And I know the moment won't be too big for the kid. But that's your Big Ten Freshman of the Year, 31 points. Even with 2 really good bigs, of course, on Michigan, and then Julian Reese also, who had a solid game with 13 points, 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 4 of 8 from the field, only 5 rebounds. We just didn't have a ton of rebounds as a team. I thought that was the main thing, but I'll talk about that in a sec. I thought out of all the 4 bigs, I thought Derek Queen was the best one on the court with 31, and that's impressive with Danny Wolf and Golden and some of these, and Julian Reese. I thought Queen was the best guy, which was definitely impressive. But to me, the reason I thought Michigan was a good matchup for us is because I thought we could go big for big, and I didn't think their size was going to be as much of an advantage for us. But the Terps got slapped on the offensive glass. I mean, Michigan had 18 offensive rebounds. Like, you're not going to win the game if Michigan has 18 offensive rebounds. They had as many offensive rebounds they had more offensive rebounds than we did defensive rebounds. They had the same amount of offensive rebounds as we had overall rebounds. I mean, that's where we lost the game. And the fact that Maryland had a chance to win that later, probably arguably should have probably won it after losing another buzzer beater. You look there. I think you got to be better at late game situations. Hopefully this was our last kind of hurrah of losing a game on a buzzer. What has it been? Our last 3 or 4 losses have all been on buzzers. Like, that cannot happen. And I'm telling you, if it's March, crazy things happen. If you let something crazy happen, a guy's probably going to score. A guy's probably going to do their thing. So Maryland's got to make sure they're in the right spot to do the right things so that doesn't happen for Maryland. You got to be good down the stretch. That's going to be important for the Terps in the dance. But I thought also our bench didn't really do much. I thought Jordan Geronimo has been giving us good minutes. He gave us solid minutes against Michigan, but only really had 2 points. No one else really did anything, which is hard. But again, Maryland, every opportunity to win that. They lost on a last-second buzzer. I thought arguably we should have won that game. But you just got to be better in late-game situations, and I think that's somewhere where Kevin Willard can improve, is be better late in games, where I thought we got a little bit better at it, but it showed itself again against Michigan. So you really got to work on those, because right now the Terps are not doing a great job of that. Maryland basketball, I think, is in a really good spot in the tournament. We'll talk about this today. We'll also talk about this tomorrow, but we'll talk about that next. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy for you to bet them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all summer long.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
I still feel really good about Maryland basketball, and I wanted to make sure that was a point. Even after losing to Michigan, I thought, to me, the reason we lost again is the late game stuff, and I still feel really good. We haven't lost a game this year where you really felt Maryland got out-talented or a team just came in and knocked us out. Every single game Maryland has played this year, and this doesn't really happen. Very few teams can probably say this in the country. They never got knocked out. Even teams that are in the tournament that are really solid teams that do a lot of things well don't have gotten blown out. Like, think about Illinois as an example. An Illinois team that's in the NCAA tournament, that's a decent team, that's a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. They've had games where they've just gotten blown out. They just got blown out, of course, by Maryland by 23. This Illinois team's been really hot before that. And a lot of people are saying you don't know what Illinois team is going to show up. You don't know if it's going to be the team that lost 23 points to Maryland or got blown out by 25 against Duke, or the team that beat Michigan by 20 and beat Purdue by 8. Or beat Iowa by 20. You just don't know. And to me, I feel really good about the Terps because there hasn't been a single game this year where Maryland hasn't been in it. And sometimes when you get into March, that's really all you need. When you get into hopefully some of these later rounds, really all you need is to be in it, and you can't ask for much more. Whereas a team like Illinois, I wouldn't feel as good going into the tournament because I'd be like, who knows what team shows up? I don't know if it's going to be the team that be a really good Michigan team by 20 or a team that lost to Duke by 25 or a team that lost to Maryland by 23. I don't know. It could be the bad team, and next thing you know, we're out in the first round. Whereas this Maryland team has taken care of teams that they should beat, as well as they've been in every single game. So I do feel really good about that, and walking away from the Big Ten tournament, still being in every single game. And yeah, losing on buzzer beaters suck and it's unlucky, but there's another part of this that isn't all negative. Obviously, we had to clean up the late game stuff, but the fact that your last 4 games that you lost, it's not like you've lost 4 in a row on buzzers. The last 4 games that you lost have come on buzzers, shows that it is tough to beat this Maryland team. And this Maryland team is that close to basically winning, what would that be, 15 straight games, 10 straight games, something like that. This Maryland team is really close to that if they don't lose on 3 or 4 straight buzzers, which is pretty insane. This Maryland team is that close to being maybe a 2 seed, maybe a 3, losing like that on 3 straight buzzers is pretty impressive. And yeah, you want to clean up those last second types of opportunities, but it does speak volume that's the way that you've lost. And then also, I think we got a good bracket. I really do. I think there's some really tough 5 seeds that you don't want to see in the second round. And of course, Maryland, you got to beat Grand Canyon, but I think its team are better than I think its team we should beat. There's some really tough 5 teams that I definitely would much rather not play. Like, I think Oregon's a really tough 5. I think Michigan is a tough 5 as well, and Clemson too. And I think Memphis is probably the weakest 5 in the game, and I think that's not a bad thing for the Terps. Obviously, Florida's really good. Oklahoma, I'm not particularly impressed with. Of course, UConn's the 8. You never know what can happen with them. But I just don't think our side of the bracket is that crazy. I think it could have been a lot worse. So I think the Terps kind of got put in a good position to be able to compete. And I really like their Queen going into the tournament hot, going for 30 points against Michigan. Queen's in a really good spot to have a really good tournament, and he needs this for his NBA future. Obviously, he wants to continue to elevate, continue to improve his stock, even though already he's in a really good spot for the NBA. There's going to be a team that picks him at a good spot, and really going to like what they have in Derek Queen, who I think is one of the best guys in the country. Freshman, Big Ten Freshman of the Year, which is really impressive. But I loved him going into the tournament hot with a huge game against Michigan. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.